Hi, this is a quick guide to what we'd like you to learn from your first and last year of senior design. At Bucknell, we have a model of design that looks at any project from 8 different perspectives. This is an introduction to those perspectives. These are the 8 perspectives. We're going to go over them in detail in the next slides. Think of them as different lenses or viewpoints to look at your project through. Any senior design project is complicated enough that there are a lot of different ways to accomplish the goals, or even define which goals are important. And people aren't going to agree on the goals or the right approach, since there's many possible approaches. These perspectives are how you balance the many and sometimes competing demands on your project. In the diagram, you'll see 3 concentric octagons. The outermost one is representations, and being successful in senior design requires that you represent, through drawings, models, images, prototypes, and simulations, your view of the project from each of these 8 perspectives. Representation is the most important part of design because they allow us to effectively communicate our ideas to others and negotiate the results of the design process. However, in the middle is results. While representations allow us to share our ideas and choose a path and make a plan, the plan needs to be executed to be successful. Results don't just mean positive results, but also failures, which are going to inform the next iteration of design, and going back and changing representations if you got it wrong. And in the center is ability, which is your skill at navigating through a design project. Skill comes with experience, and the more experience you get at looking at design from these 8 different angles, the better you're going to be able to be in the future to work with the many parts of whatever organization are going to be employing you and doing meaningful projects in the world. Let's get into these 8 perspectives. The first perspective is being able to see how your work contributes to the greater good and public welfare. It is here that your own deeply held beliefs and values will influence the path you will take through a design project. So being able to master this aspect of design involves knowing yourself and knowing how to contribute to a greater good. The second perspective is learning how to understand the contextual details of your project. Who are the stakeholders? What do they care about? And how does this project differ in its details from work you've done before? One of the joys and frustrations of engineering is that every project you do is going to be different. The third perspective is about design, which in its essence is about creating technologies to implement particular functions. Almost all of these functions are already known. They've been proven. They are the existing state of the art. The perspective of choosing useful functions is identifying which functions your design will need to perform and mapping them to these existing technologies. You also need to determine which functions are the most and least critical to the success of your project. After you've identified the functions needed, there will be many ways to implement them. The art of design is choosing from the many possible ways to implement the functions the approaches that are most appropriate for this particular project based on the context. Here you'll work closely with stakeholders to iteratively define the details of the project and plan the work to come. A lot of people think design is building stuff, but it's pointless to build the wrong thing. However, once you've a reasonable certainty of what to create, you have the parts, tools, skills, and a plan to do so, this is where the building starts. The building perspective design gets into the details of how to make a project that successfully meets goals in a way that's robust, responsible, and affordable. Despite the effort you put in to plan a path, choose functions, and build things the right way, oftentimes things don't work the way they're supposed to. The performance lens of design is about asking questions of what's good enough and measuring how well initial prototypes meet client needs. Performance questions drive all aspects of design, as we'll see later. At the end of the day, your work needs to create value for your client and stakeholders. Value is a nuanced and complex concept, and most design projects redefine value several times on the path to success. Value is also about resource management, and the most important resource you have is your own time. So questions of values also inform all the other perspectives. Finally, but not the least important for being last, is the importance of acting professionally. Design is hard. It's going to challenge your relationships and friendships. The difference between a fun and rewarding experience and a march to misery is the people you work with. Paying attention to your own actions and your relationships, constantly working to improve them, is critical in any design project. We have a saying in senior design that at the end of the day you'll solve all the technical problems, but the people problems often remain. So you can think of starting a design project as playing in a sandbox to build a sand castle. Let's go into that analogy a little bit. You can look at what you build from a lot of different angles, and it won't look the same from all angles, but is nevertheless one object. These are the 8 perspectives you see. There are a few guidelines though, or rules of thumb, what we call heuristics, for making a good sandcastle and making friends while you play. The first is not to move through these perspectives in a cycle. You were taught in other classes design is a cycle you go through in a linear fashion. That is simply not true. Rather, successful designers are able to rapidly shift from one perspective to another as they develop their designs. The more rapidly you can shift and look at the project from a variety of perspectives, the more successful your design project will be. As you start to get into your project, you're going to start to uncover a vast amount of information. It will be overwhelming, like you're trying to assemble a sandcastle one grain at a time. Having a lot of grains of sand gives you choice, and maximizing your choices is really important early in design. But if you get too hung up on details, deciding which of millions of grains of sand is the right one to place now, you're going to get bogged down. It's important for your team to integrate and synthesize information. Throughout design, but particularly the early and later stages, it's important to focus on the big ideas, abstractions, to focus on the overall goals of your project. There is a time in which you are going to have to get down to the details, and it's important to be able to do so, but spending all your time in the details is a recipe for failure. You're playing in a sandbox with other people, and all your work has to mesh together to build a single sandcastle or complete your project at the end. Be aware of what other people are doing. Don't step in their space and knock down their part of the project accidentally. Align your work with that of other people on your team. Not doing so is how billion-dollar mistakes happen in industry. Remember that you're playing with sand and can start over. It's just sand. Sometimes things are going to go wrong, and all or part of your castle may need to be rebuilt from the ground up. It's going to go faster the second time. And this sounds contradictory, but you don't want to knock down your sandcastle at a whim or all the time. You have to develop the judgment to know what parts of your project are solid and which need redesign. Sometimes when the going gets tough, and it will, the temptation to start over on a different path gets really strong. It may be that you started in a completely wrong direction, and you do need to start over. But it's much more likely you need a small course correction. So don't knock down your sandcastle without understanding the consequences of doing so. Hopefully this video has given you some ideas on how to navigate your capstone project. Remember, at the center of design is negotiation. You can negotiate the outcomes of your project with your client and the professors. It's okay for things to change. And also remember to have fun. This is going to be stressful, but also rewarding, and the extent to which it's stressful or rewarding, fun or not, is ultimately up to you.